after spending £400 million plus, which is the most spent by any club during a transfer window in the Premier League history in the last summer, and over £1 billion in the time that Todd Boehly has been in charge of Chelsea, which has just been over a year now. You would think that they should at least, at the bare minimum, be a top 4 team in the Premier League. But after a 1-0 defeat at home to Aston Villa, where they were booed off by their own fans, there are some really worrying signs for Chelsea. But what's exactly gone wrong for the London outfit? Well, that's exactly what we will be discussing in today's video. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Back of the Net here. I hope you're all doing well. Now, there's quite a lot of factors that's played into Chelsea's downfall. So we'll start off with the change of ownership. We first had their ownership change, right? Todd Boehly purchased Chelsea for £4.2 billion in May 2022, signaling the end of the Roman Abramovich era after 19 years. During Abramovich's time as owner of Chelsea, Chelsea won 21 trophies, including 5 Premier League titles and 2 Champions Leagues. However, the last 6 months of Abramovich's ownership were dominated by controversy amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and Chelsea were unable to sell or sign any players or offer any new contracts in the final months of Abramovich's tenure with the club. This obviously in turn led to the departure of a number of experienced players on free transfers, including Antonio Rudiger, Andreas Christensen and Marcus Alonso, who had all been regular players in and around the first team in the previous seasons. Now, other than the change of ownership, I think an extremely important factor was the sacking of Thomas Tuchel. When Todd Boehly arrived as owner of Chelsea, he promised the club that they would have more a long-term approach to managers and not follow the hiring and firing strategy that was set by Roman Abramovich. Despite these comments though, in less than 12 months into the American's tenure with the club, he's already fired 2 permanent managers, one being Thomas Tuchel and then obviously Graham Potter. Now, of all the 12 managerial departures in the whole of the Premier League last season, I think it's fair to say the most surprising was Chelsea's decision to part company with Thomas Tuchel. The German was hugely successful during his 18-month stay at Stamford Bridge, and he guided the club to a Champions League triumph in 2021. Tuchel followed that Champions League achievement up with a 3rd place finish while narrowly missing out on glory in both the League and FA Cup. And since his departure, Chelsea just haven't looked the same. They haven't done well. I think at one point they had 29 points from 25 games after his departure. Chelsea just didn't look the same. Now, looking back at it now, at the time I appreciated and I thought, what Thomas Tuchel was doing at Chelsea was great. But looking back at it now, it looks even better. Considering the stuff that they were dealing with behind the scenes, I think Thomas Tuchel did more than a good enough job to keep his spot, I think. Thomas Tuchel's departure came as a shock, I think not just to Chelsea fans, but I think to all the fans around the Premier League. The next factor, I think, is the biggest one, the most televised one, the one that everyone's talking about. It's their recruitment. Chelsea have spent a staggering amount of almost around £1 billion on new players in the past year. And despite this mass influx of new players, they currently look a shadow of the side which we have been accustomed to seeing when you talk about Chelsea. After Chelsea's defeat to Real Madrid in April, I think it was in 2022, the Brazilian Thiago Silva revealed that the club has had to increase the size of the changing room because it didn't fit the size of the team. It just felt like they were playing FIFA, trying to buy all of the good young players for huge prices in hopes that one of them or some of them may come good. Signing the players as well to 8-year deals isn't as smart as some make it seem, right? Let's face it, not every youngster is going to live up to the hype. And the risk you take by signing them to an 8-year deal is far higher than if you just signed them to a 3 or 4-year deal. With the 8-year signings, let's say you have a player that just doesn't work out. Say with Mudryk so far, right? You're then left with a player who isn't good enough to play for your team. But no team wants a piece of him. No team wants to take him from Chelsea because his contract is so huge, his wage is huge, and overall he has no reason to leave. If he's getting paid for so long, so much money, why would he leave Chelsea, right? It causes more problems than solutions. Having such a high number of talented young players sounds like a luxury in some respects due to squad rotation, but it can be a huge task for a manager to keep everyone happy when they're not playing and to ensure that all these young players get enough game time so that they can grow to fulfill their potential. The several punts that Chelsea have seemed to take on players like Cucurella, Koulibaly, João Felix, Aubameyang, and so many more just made it seem even worse for Chelsea. Chelsea seem to either buy players purely based on potential, or they just do a panic signing in hopes that they could hopefully get lucky, like with Aubameyang, for example. Another problem with their recruitment is that, unlike successful clubs in recent times, Chelsea don't seem to have a stable manager, and that can make the recruitment all the more difficult. Managers should have a huge say in who comes in and who goes out the door at their club. This helps them build a team that best suits a system that they want to play. When you have managers in and out, they are left with players that they might not see any use in, and going back to the 8-year deals, the managers are kind of forced to use players that they otherwise wouldn't have wanted. Now, going away from recruitment for a little bit, I think another thing that's overlooked is Chelsea's inability to lay down a long-term plan at the club. Although Chelsea reached the heights of its glory under Abramovich's ownership, the club certainly made some poor decisions. The club sacked managers after a period of poor results, even after being a manager who is financially backed in the transfer window, right? Chelsea has notably had 17 different managers in the last 20 years. This hasn't helped build a much needed stability in the club. It stifles the growth of your younger players because managers feel pressured to always win, so they go with the tried and true tested older players. They don't seem to have a plan in mind for the next couple of years and are taking it day by day. Chelsea really seem like they are a mess right now. This season, it's gone from bad to worse for Chelsea. With just one win in 6 games, it's looking dull at Stamford Bridge. Despite having a manager that many regard as a world-class manager, which I totally disagree with, but that's another topic for another day, in Pochettino, they still continue to have little to no success. So where do Chelsea go from here? Well, a change of mindset around the club first. A plan needs to be made for the next 5+ years for the club. The board need to find a manager that they completely believe in for the next 5 years. That manager has to stay around despite results. And unless the manager just completely flops in the first couple years, like absolutely badly, then the manager should be given time. If we think about when Arteta arrived at Arsenal after that early success where he won an FA Cup, he became a laughingstock for over a year and a bit. Couldn't beat any small teams, getting thrashed by big teams despite spending money. But him and the Arsenal board had a plan, and it looks like as of right now it's paying off. Chelsea need to take the same approach. When they have the manager, next is the recruitment. They need to fix the mindset of spending huge money and signing players to ridiculously long contracts. The manager should be a key part of who gets brought in. It can't be a decision made by only the top of the club. The whole backroom staff have to be in agreement on anyone from contract extensions to signings and sales. Everyone has to be in agreement. Now, I know all of this in this video is easier said than done, but in my opinion, if Chelsea want to experience the glory that they so often did in the Abramovich era, things need to change, and drastically at that. But with all that being said, I would love to know your guys' thoughts in the comments. How can Chelsea turn this around? Is Pochettino the right man for the job? And I'll see you guys in the next one.